Welcome into the PHNX D-backs podcast. My name is Jesse Friedman, and today I am not joined by Derek Montilla once again, but I am joined by a familiar face around here. Once again, joining the show, it's our esteemed guest, Patrick Lyons. Patrick, welcome back.
When you call somebody esteemed, they are forced to cancel any doctor's appointments that they may have. Consultations with a lawyer. They just have to wipe their schedule clean, and I have done that for you today because you've called me esteemed, and so I am here to serve you in the Diamondbacks community to talk some baseball, which we love.
And I think we're going to do the same thing tomorrow. Somehow we've wrangled Patrick into doing back-to-back days here on the show. So Derek will be back on Wednesday. We'll be back here with Patrick tomorrow. So be sure to join us then. Once again at 6 o'clock. We'll be at 6 o'clock throughout the week. And then on Friday, we'll be back to 1 o'clock. Kind of depends on how things work out with the Diamondbacks spring training schedule. But let's go ahead and talk some Diamondbacks baseball here, Patrick. The Diamondbacks lost in brutal fashion to the Oakland A's here today. A final score of 9-8. The Diamondbacks lose on a walk-off home run by Drew Lugbauer. I'm probably messing that up. Patrick, you're the baseball encyclopedia among us. I don't know if you have the full-on backstory on this guy.
Well, the Drew Lugbauer story is a crazy one. Now, his family originally emanates from... Now, I don't know anything about Drew Lugbauer. He's a nice guy. But that's one of the wonderful things. It's not wonderfully awful. It's just wonderful. These guys that just come up out of nowhere. They're double-A guys, high-A, whatever. Journeyman players that come up and they make the difference, and they get a walk-off late in the game at home at Hohokam Park. So that's good for the entire Lugbauer family. They will never forget this day.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I mean, today's game ending on a walk-off, and then yesterday's Diamondbacks White Sox game at Salt River Fields. We of course weren't live after this one because it was a Sunday game, but the Diamondbacks nearly threw a combined no-hitter. Came within a few outs of throwing a combined no-hitter in a spring training game. So, I mean, nothing beats. The storylines are immaculate, Patrick, with a combined no-hitter in a spring training game, a walk-off win in a spring training game. These are the kind of dramatic moments that we need this time of year for sure. But on a more serious note, the Diamondbacks have gotten really strong performances early on from some of their fifth starter candidates. We saw Tommy Henry. He pitched on Friday. Ryan Nelson on Saturday. Slade Ciccone went on Sunday. All three of those guys were really good. Blake Walston pitched today for the Diamondbacks. He was the starter against the Oakland A's. Not so great on that front. Walston, an inning and 2/3, 2 hits, 2 runs, 2 walks, 1 strikeout in that game. His command was a little bit off in this one. He had a 4-pitch walk in the first inning. Bounced back, was able to get an inning double play. Second inning was a little bit more rough for him. All in all, not a great performance from Blake Walston. And here is how he felt about his outing after the fact.
It wasn't very good, to be honest with you. I got a lot of things to work on, but it's the first one, so a lot to build on from here, and just come out and keep doing what I need to be doing. So.
Didn't find the strike zone enough. Is that kind of?
Yeah, just got behind in counts when I don't really need to. Those 3-0 counts are unacceptable. Can't happen. Yeah, just a big learning lesson, for 2024. So, but it's all good. We're gonna get back at it tomorrow.
Yeah, so all the way around, not an ideal performance from Blake Walston. You hear there, he's pretty hard on himself coming after this one. Just saying from the top, it wasn't very good at all. He wasn't especially pleased with his performance, and yeah, certainly from a numbers standpoint, it wasn't great. The backstory, Patrick, on Blake Walston, although I'm sure you probably already knew this knowing you, but the Diamondbacks selected him 26th overall back in the first round a few years ago, and he was the draft pick that the Diamondbacks received after Matt McLain, their pick from the year prior, did not sign. So Matt McLain, of course, certainly had a nice first taste of the majors for the Cincinnati Reds this past year. The Diamondbacks had Blake Walston instead, and they certainly liked him. He was drafted out of high school, and there's certainly some potential there with a 4-pitch mix. The velocity is something that I think they counted on coming up, and it just has kind of never happened for him. We saw that in the kind of 90 to 92 range here today. And yeah, Blake Walston is just hasn't quite panned out as the pitcher the Diamondbacks might have hoped he would be, but he's also still 22 years old, so there's certainly still plenty of time here.
Yeah, and the other piece with Walston is he's a left-hander, and they age in a really interesting way, like almost like a fine wine. And he's a long way from really soaking in those grapes. He's still a relatively young man. But you like what he was able to do last year at Reno with, I mean, shoot, that was an ERA that in many years would almost make you considered an ace. A 4.52 ERA in the Pacific Coast League is pretty impressive to be able to do that. And I sort of think, as you said, like the words he used were rough on himself today, and it's one game, it's spring training, doesn't mean anything. I also sort of think that he had a look in his eye of almost like, like I just have to laugh that one off. And in a way, that probably takes a little bit of pressure off on him, right? Where
Sure.
You've got all these guys battling for the 5th spot. Now he's all the way in the back. And so everything else right now is going to be gravy, I feel like, going forward, where, okay, cool, I'm the odd man out. That takes the pressure off me now for the whole next month. So I think he'll go out and have probably, some better performances, not put that same pressure on himself, since he knows, okay, right now I'm probably ticketed for Reno, so let me go out there and prepare for that season in AAA. And, I was thinking about Walston earlier today, and he seems like the kind of guy that would have made 20 to 25 starts in 2021 or 22, and you'd have been like, this is a good number 4, number 5 starter for a team like that. And now the Diamondbacks are, so overwhelmed with quality talent, in that rotation, that they can be picky and choosy and go, oh, all right, Walston didn't have a good first showing. We still got a lot of other candidates that can easily step up and take that spot, number 5 in the rotation. Yeah,
that's a fair point. I think in a world where the Diamondbacks don't have the depth that they do, maybe even in other organizations, Blake Walston is someone who's like very genuinely vying for a spot on the opening day rotation. You guys could probably hear there, I know some people are saying it in the chat, he is from North Carolina, and you can certainly hear that in the way that he talks. Today was my first time getting to meet him personally, so it doesn't take long. You don't have to talk to Blake Walston for very long to recognize that. But yeah, you made a great point about his ERA in the Pacific Coast League last year. 4.52 is actually really impressive, and I think the peripherals there tell a little bit of a different story. 93 walks compared to 104 strikeouts. So basically the same number of walks as strikeouts, which isn't exactly what you want to see. But here's Walston talking about how he's assessing that 2023 season in the Pacific Coast League that he just had.
I was pretty satisfied with last year's performance. Obviously the strikeouts could have been a little bit higher. And they're helping me work on, finding that pitch that will allow me to have a little bit more of that strikeout rate. So last year was, pretty successful in my eyes, made it AAA, had a very successful season in AAA in my eyes, did a lot of things good. But, we're here to work on, things for 2024.
Yeah, so overall, I think he's fairly satisfied with the season he had, but as you heard there, still certainly looking to improve in some ways. He talked about trying to find a pitch that's going to help get that strikeout rate up a little bit. That's been a challenge for him throughout his minor league career. And again, at 22 years old, even though maybe this isn't exactly the guy that the Diamondbacks envisioned when they first drafted him, he's 22 and in AAA. There's something to be said for that in and of itself. So yeah. One outing, not a great outing for Blake Walston, but as you said earlier, Patrick, this is spring training, and nobody's winning any job or losing any job just based off of the first time they go out there.
Yeah, the thing that I look at with Walston is his previous seasons. So give him credit for the 4.52 ERA and the hitter's haven that is the Pacific Coast League. But if you go back and look at what his numbers were like in 2022, he had nearly 10 strikeouts per nine. And in 2021, 11 strikeouts per nine. So the strikeout has always been there over the course of his career as a professional. It just went away from things just a little bit last year. Playing against guys that were an average of 5 years older than him, right? You forget about AAA as like, oh, these guys are still developing. There's quadruple A players in there. There's veteran guys. There's, you look at someone like the Oklahoma City Dodgers roster in AAA, and you go, oh, there's like veteran players who could probably, take a spot on the bench or even start for a team like the White Sox or A's or Rockies last year that are losing 100 games. So, there's older guys that are in that league. So for him to be, over 5 years younger than the average player in AAA, and to know that strikeout has been in there in the past, I think is promising to say, okay, he's going to be able to bounce back just a little bit and be able to contribute to this team in some capacity.
Yeah, he certainly factors into that depth conversation. We'll kind of see how things unfold over the course of spring training. Jordan Lawlar hit a home run today, and that was a big piece of news. We can roll the clip. This is a video we took out at Ho-Ho-Com today of Jordan Lawlar just absolutely destroying what I believe was a fastball well over the left field fence. Lawlar is a big piece for the Diamondbacks, undoubtedly. Kind of a consensus top 10 prospect in the sport at this point. He's certainly got a hold of this one. And Patrick, I mean, you talk about the Diamondbacks' future and their ability to potentially. We just doing this on repeat. I like it, Jacob. Nice.
I felt like people really needed to just see that a second time and listen to the. Yeah, I was gonna say that sounded like a cannon. So
yeah, it was an absolute shot. But yeah, we talk about the Diamondbacks being able to maintain this and not just have this be a one-hit wonder of them making the postseason and going as far as they did in 2023. Jordan Lawlar is a really, really big part of that, and one home run isn't exactly going to. Either make or break his season or whatnot here in spring training, but good to see for sure.
It is, and it is against a big league pitcher too, in Trevor Gott. That's one of the interesting things about spring training is you can look at statistics and see a guy playing really well or playing not so well. If you're struggling in spring training, all right, you were working on a couple things. These games don't mean anything. It's easy to forget about it. And if a guy's playing really well, at the same time, you could go, well, against what kind of talent were they playing against? What kind of talent player? So Trevor Gott, big league reliever there for the A's. So Jordan Lawlar did that against him as opposed to, someone for the Las Vegas Aviators, which is actually an affiliate of the Oakland Athletics. It sounds like I'm combining all these things. No, coincidentally, it's Las Vegas Aviators are the AAA team of the Oakland, potentially soon to be Las Vegas A's. It's very muddy, but what's not muddy
potentially
is he's a nice prospect, man, and he's going to be coming up. I think when it's his time to come up, they're going to turn the keys over to him at shortstop. He'll be ready. He'll have proven whatever it is that the Diamondbacks feel that he needs to have shown, and you have Jerry Perdomo there just moving around as a really player on the infield. So it's going to be a big acquisition. He's already on the roster. He's already part of the 40-man. But even still, it's going to be like a big addition, a big boost to the roster once he goes out and kind of works on those little minor final touches that he needs to make to really become a full-time big leaguer.
Yeah, we've talked about Torrey coming out and saying that Geraldo Perdomo is the everyday shortstop of this team. I think that's already established at this point. But yeah, even if Jordan Lawlar doesn't make the team out of spring training, which is kind of my read on the situation as of right now, that doesn't mean he couldn't come up in May. It doesn't mean he couldn't have a pretty big impact on this team when all is said and done. So yeah, we didn't see him really impacting the baseball at the big league level toward the end of last year. It was a really small sample size. The team just kind of threw him in there to see if they could, if he could provide them anything that Nick Ahmed couldn't, especially against lefties. He struggled, but it was a really small sample size, and he'll be looking to build off that here in spring training. Another youngster, also 21 years old, who made a bit of an impression in this game, Christian Mena. We don't have a strikeout highlight, but we do have a pop-out highlight. Mena just faced, I believe it was 3 batters altogether in this game. Just one inning pitch, but you see him here throwing 96 miles per hour, getting a lazy pop fly up the first base line, caught in foul territory. Mena came over from the Chicago White Sox in the Dominic Fletcher trade that was just made a couple of weeks ago. And the Diamondbacks, when they made this trade, they were hoping to see Christian Mena's fastball velocity come up. And that apparently took all of about 2 weeks because Mena was 94 to 96 miles per hour. That's what I saw at Ho'ohkam today. And last year, he averaged about 92 and a half in his time with the White Sox and their AAA team. So the Diamondbacks might really have something here. And, Dominic Fletcher, I think, has a chance to be a good player, but that was an area of depth for them. And, Patrick, anytime you see a 21-year-old who's in AAA and, his fastball velo just jump like 3 miles per hour pretty quickly like this, it's definitely intriguing for sure.
It's a chess move, right? You're taking a nice player like Dominic Canzone, but you're saying, hey, right, there's no real room for him or Jake McCarthy. There's room for one of them, and whoever you want, go ahead and take, because we like Mena. And yeah, to your point, look, that clip is very valuable because I'm pretty sure in the Diamondbacks Discord, no one was talking about any strikeouts, anything like that. They were all buzzing about that pop-up in foul territory to number 86. I don't think we need to say who it is. It's pretty obvious. We're talking about the Oakland Athletics. But for him to induce that pop-up to number 86, way more impressive than any strikeout he could have had today.
Undoubtedly so. Again, you don't necessarily read into the results too much, but the velocity is something that is, I do read into velocity at this point. We'll see if he's able to maintain that over the course of the season. But it was 94 to 96 today. And that's also something that Nick Piccoro had just reported on over at the Arizona Republic, that he had been sitting in the 94 to 96 range in bullpen sessions. So I'm led to believe this isn't just like the radar guns at Ho'ohkam malfunctioning. I think this is real. And that's a really positive development for the Diamondbacks. Less positive from this game, Yu-Min Lin, Diamondbacks pitching prospect, another Diamondbacks pitching prospect who has gotten a lot of hype in recent days. Really strong showing in live BP the other day, but not as strong of a showing in this one here against the Oakland A's. His final line today, just a third of an inning. He recorded 1 out on a strikeout, but allowed 5 runs on 4 hits, a couple of walks as well. Yu-Min Lin is 20 years old. Like all these guys we're talking about right now are super young. And, you're not too concerned again about just one outing, but not exactly the Cactus League debut that Diamondbacks fans were hoping for.
No. And again, that's one of the beautiful things about spring training is you can just totally brush it to the side as if it's not a big deal, because it really isn't. He very well could be working on things, and wins and losses are just so, the results in and of themselves of a single at bat are just meaningless in spring training, and
sure,
you'd even say they're almost halfway meaningless in the regular season, because look, there's things that coaches and front offices see and evaluate that go beyond just the end result, right? Sometimes the effort and the performance doesn't actually match whether or not you get a base hit or not. Was he working on something? Who knows? Did he just have a bad day? Those are kind of the performances that we really see too much, and you don't make a big deal about when he's pitching in Amarillo or Hillsboro. It just so happened that it happened on a big league diamond in spring training. So shake it off.
Yeah, I will. A couple of observations on Yu-Min Lin. Speaking of velocity, he was 92 to 94. Mostly, there were it was like 89, 90 toward the end. It was a little unclear if that was actually the 4-seamer or a different pitch. His velo was higher than I expected it to be, for whatever that's worth. It was, he didn't throw all that many pitches, so stuff to see, is he able to kind of maintain that over the course of a full start? But yeah, Yu-Min Lin being in that velo range is interesting to me. I wonder if he was maybe overthrowing a little bit, and that, that contributed to his issues today. He really struggled with commanding his breaking ball. He was really, trying to drive that down in the zone for swing and miss, and trying to just drive it down into the strike zone. And he was missing arm side over and over and over again. So Yeah, I still think I'm still impressed with the stuff that I've seen, especially if that fastball velo is real. I think that, that heater combined with the curveball and the changeup that we've seen on the backfields is impressive. But yeah, not a great start for Lin. I don't think anyone's too concerned about that at this point. It is interesting to look at this point at where all of the Diamondbacks' fifth starter candidates stand in this race. Granted, they've each only had one outing at this point, but we threw together a graphic that has some numbers of all of these guys who are in the mix for that fifth rotation spot. And Blake Walston aside, as we discussed earlier, he wasn't great today. But you look at Tommy Henry, 2 innings, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, 3 strikeouts. Ryan Nelson on Saturday, 2 innings, 2 hits, no runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts. Slade Ciccone was really good on Sunday, 2 innings, no hits, no runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. Got a whiff on all of his pitches. And then Walston struggled a little bit, as we said. The Diamondbacks only have room for one of these guys in the starting rotation. I guess I'll add, Bryce Jarvis maybe factors into this conversation as well, though we haven't seen him in a game just yet. But yeah, I mean, I guess this is a good problem for the Diamondbacks to have. These things have a way of figuring themselves out over time here in spring training. I remember last year when the Diamondbacks had a 5th starter competition, it seemed like one guy was the far and away front runner, and then that guy has a bad outing and suddenly his ERA doubles, and these things change a lot. But this first run through for all of these guys has been really promising.
Yeah, that's good, man. It's good to have that kind of competition, that level going, and for all of them, to have that kind of success outside of even just the battle for that 5th spot in the rotation, for each individual guy to really get that confidence, get their thing going. They're not really paying attention to what the other person's doing, and they also believe in their abilities, that they are a big league starting pitcher, and so even if the results don't necessarily show that up in spring training, their coaches are going to be fully aware of what they're capable of. I mean, we all saw what Brandon Pfaadt was able to do in the second half and in the postseason, and the phone call that was made by Brent Strom saying, "Hey, you are going to be pivotal to this team going forward." And so I think in some shape or form, there could be one guy here that starts the season in Reno, but Torey Lovullo and the rest of the coaching staff knows this guy that's down in Reno is actually going to be the one that ends up making 20 to 25 starts and is going to be our number 5 starter for the duration of the year, even if it doesn't start that way. So that's one of the positive things right now, with there being so many options for the Diamondbacks and for such a great coaching staff, and have Brent Strom there to say, hey, you know what, even if the right guy didn't start the season on March 28th on the 26-man roster, they're going to get the right guy for a majority of starts across the course of the 2024 season.
Yeah, and I think, another option that they could explore is moving one or multiple of these guys to the bullpen and see what you get there. Ryan Nelson, we haven't really talked much about his outing on Saturday. He was really good. I mean, he struck out 5 in 2 innings. He had 8 whiffs, 5 whiffs on his slider. As I mentioned on another video here on YouTube the other day, he's ditched the slower version of his slider. He's only throwing the harder one now in the mid to upper 80s. He feels like that pitch is easier to make that look like a fastball to the hitter. Certainly makes sense. And it was darn effective in that game on Saturday. 5 strikeouts over those 2 innings. And, naturally my mind just goes to, all right, if Tommy Henry does get the 5th rotation spot, he seems like maybe the favorite. I guess if you had to declare a favorite right now, it would be him, just based on his performance last year and how consistent he was for the Diamondbacks last season. Ryan Nelson, if you get the fastball at 96, maybe that jumps to 98 in a bullpen role. You get him to just narrow in on the slider and that fastball. That's a pretty compelling 2-pitch combo for a reliever who I think could be pretty good for this Diamondbacks team. So I know they're wary of moving guys into the bullpen and then shifting them back to the starting rotation. We saw that last year with Dre Jameson. He needed Tommy John surgery. I don't know if that's a coincidence or what that is necessarily, but I don't think the Diamondbacks want to go there. But it is an interesting decision that they'll maybe have to face. Like, do we want to keep all these guys stretched out, or do we see an opportunity for one of these guys to step into our bullpen from day one and really make an impact that way?
Yeah, that was going to be my next point, is that the long reliever role right now, there really is nobody that is filling that. I mean, Luis Frias, I've seen in some places that being the name suggested where, okay, you could stretch him
Sure.
out a little bit, but not in the same way as these young guys. I know there's the first week of the season after the homestand against the Rockies and Yankees, they have an off day and then they go on the road for a week and then they have an off day. So it's not necessarily like, if they wanted to kind of go to an unofficial 6-man rotation and they can use the long reliever, to make a start, they won't really need to do anything like that. They've got a good, simple and straightforward schedule to start the year with those off days kind of baked in. But yeah, you absolutely could use one of those guys as a long reliever. And if Luis Frias has another option left, which that's the rumor going around
Apparently
town,
he does.
then yeah, maybe allows you to have your cake and eat it too, and not send them all back to Reno except for one guy. It does allow you to keep two.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. Last guy I want to touch on real quick before we just get to some quick final updates from spring training. Blaze Alexander has looked really good for the Diamondbacks in the few games that he's played. Didn't have a hit in the game today, but he is hitting 429 for whatever that's worth. I think he's probably 3 for 7 so far in spring training. But defensively is really where he stood out the most. We saw him turn an insane double play. I think that was on Saturday against the Rockies. A play that I'm still not entirely sure if he actually turned the double play. I don't think the runner was actually out at second base, but they're not bothering with instant replay, I guess. So the call stood. He turned another really impressive double play in the game today. Just really, really solid defensively. You know what you're going to get there. I think he has a chance to be a contributor defensively at shortstop, at second base, and at third base. There's a lot of value in that versatility. And the offense that we've seen so far has been pretty impressive too. Here's Torey Lovullo after the game. He was asked about Blaze Alexander and his impact, and kind of the role that he could play for this team in 2024.
Times last year we were getting some third basemen were getting banged up. Guys were getting traded, and Blaze's name was thrown around as a potential third baseman. So that was last year. You add a year on. He's healthy. He can impact the baseball. We want to create some versatility in case that need comes up again, whether it's now, out of spring training, or sometime during the season.
Why you guys like him as a guy who can potentially impact the major league team down the line?
I think he's an impact bat. He can square up the baseball. I think he's learning still as a hitter. Specifically left hand could probably go up and hit left-hand pitching effectively, but with a defensive versatility, I think that's always an added component.
Yeah, defensive versatility has a lot of value. Even if there are some questions about how the bat will translate to the majors, you heard him there talk about against lefties in particular, that Blaze Alexander could be an asset. There's a pretty clear role there. I mean, Geraldo Perdomo being kind of the everyday shortstop for this team. Perdomo was substantially better against righties than lefties last year. So if you're looking to have a backup shortstop who excels against lefties, Blaze Alexander makes a lot of sense there. Patrick, I'm by the day. I mean, it's been 4 days, so I'm trying not to go too crazy, but I'm more sold on on the path for Blaze Alexander to make this team than I was, when Cactus League play started.
Yeah, I like that he was able to play a little shortstop today too, late in that game. So again, as you said, that defensive versatility. I think it makes some sense that he could be a guy that is able to break camp. Now, granted, you send him to AAA, you have him, right? You have that option. But if you put him on that opening day roster, that means you might be cutting ties with either Emmanuel Rivera or Jace Peterson as that utility fielder spot, right? Now Peterson can play a little bit of outfield if you really need to in a pinch. So, how much are you actually gaining by, seemingly improving your bench a little bit by having a Blaze Alexander, but then removing that depth from your organization, right? Because those guys aren't going to go back down to AAA more likely than not. You never know. Sometimes those guys do get slipped down through waivers. They might be able to sign a deal with somebody else. It's hard to know exactly what will happen, but if you do hold off on Blaze Alexander, who showed last year, spent the entirety of the season with the Aces, so it hit like 292. So he already has that AAA pedigree. So keeping him hot there, no pun intended, there in Nevada, could allow you to have your cake and eat it too, and really allow you to utilize the depth. The one thing that seems to be true all around baseball. I have heard some injuries, that have been around on all 30 teams, but I haven't heard a ton of injuries. I feel like not that we're overdue, but it doesn't seem like there's a ton of guys that are already out for the year or are going to miss, the first 2 months of the season. So injuries do happen, and sometimes it's kind of sort themselves out for better or worse. So, cross that bridge when you get to it. But Blaze Alexander, no, there's definitely a good reason to be hyped up about him so far this spring.
I think it's kind of a matter of when, not if, at this point. I mean, he's already on the 40-man roster. As you said, he spent the 2023 season in AAA. I don't necessarily think he has a ton more to prove there. Maybe take the strikeout rate down a little bit. That was, I think, around 27% last year, which is maybe a little bit on the higher end. But yeah, I mean, I think about the Diamondbacks' options to back up Perdomo at shortstop. Torey Lovullo has said he wants Emmanuel Rivera to play some shortstop. He wants Jace Peterson to get some reps there as well. We know about Jordan Lawlar, but again, I don't really see Jordan Lawlar as a candidate for the backup role because the Diamondbacks want to see him get everyday opportunity. So it makes a lot of sense. He's already on the 40-man. You don't have to create another spot. So we'll see how it turns out, but certainly a good start for Blaze Alexander on all fronts. Finally, a couple of just quick notes. Eduardo Rodriguez will start for the Diamondbacks on Tuesday, making his Cactus League debut. So that should be exciting to see. D-backs are back at Salt River Fields tomorrow. And then Alec Thomas is dealing with some right wrist soreness. That's something that we learned today. Kept him out of the lineup today. Torey Lovullo said that he could have played if the Diamondbacks needed him to, but this is spring training, and I mean, why would you force a player to play when they're dealing with some sort of soreness? There's really no reason to do that. So yeah, something that's kind of been bothering Alec for a couple of days. I know he was tracking pitches today in live BP rather than swinging, just trying to get better on that front. So we'll continue to monitor that, but I don't think any huge concern on that front at this point. I want to take a quick break here and tell you all about our friends over at Empire Today. Which we have some new flooring over in Studio A. Patrick, I don't know if you noticed when you were here, but it is far, far better than what was there before. That was our friends over at Empire Today making that happen. With Empire Today, you get shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, which we experienced here, and a price match guarantee as well. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use the promo code PHNX. Restrictions apply. See empiretoday.com/PHNX for details. Also, Patrick, I don't know if you noticed when you were here, but we just have Circle K snacks like everywhere in this office. They are just everywhere. We had some of our lovely diehards bring in a Valentine's Day little care packages for all of the different beats here at PHNX, and everything was from Circle K. It was amazing. Circle K is not just... There was a lot of
controversy in this office.
There was a lot of controversy.
Their Circle K snacks.
People love their Circle K snacks a little bit too much around here. And do we ever figure out who the thief is, Jacob?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Eric Ruby confessed to stealing the chips. Opening the chips. He felt like they were communal. Nobody ever came forward about the popcorn.
Okay.
Although we have a few suspects that we think are probably likely. I won't name names. They know who they are.
Is Patrick one of the suspects?
I mean, maybe. He was in here.
He was here.
And then I think somebody on the Suns crew, Lindsey Smith, for sure ate the M&Ms.
Okay.
And Flex ate the second replacement bag of M&Ms.
I'll admit something. When I was in the studio on Tuesday, I did see one of the chocolate and peanut butter bars lying around, and I had to tap in because I had heard some buzz about the Circle K chocolate peanut butter bars. I ate half of it, scarfed it before we went on air with you, me, and Derek, Jesse, and then maybe even weirder was when I came back, the other half was gone. So someone else stole stolen chocolate.
We have some opportunistic thieves in this office. Yeah, if somebody's like, well, it's already open, it might as well.
I feel
they just wait.
Like once you've taken a bite out of something like that, you've claimed it as your own, right? I mean, it
was a snap situation.
Oh, it was a snap. All right, that was the mistake.
Yeah, that's psychotic energy. If he picked up the bar, ate half of it, and then just left it out for people, that's just crazy person energy.
Well, if you can't tell, we enjoy our Circle K snacks around here, and I'm sure you would too. You can also save 25 cents per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups if you join the Circle K Inner Circle, which we have all done around here. If you like saving money, you should go ahead and get on that. You also, after your first 5 fill-ups, will save 3 cents per gallon every day thereafter. Join Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details. Jacob, do we have the Mailbag Monday song and theme in there? We can maybe go without the song.
It was not linked, but I do have the song, and I might have muted you for your whole rant after that. So, yeah,
nice.
when you click on it and it doesn't work, it decides that it wants to mess up the whole system, and then it takes me a second to realize that. But I do have the song.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess I have to do the little intro here. So every year is our year on the PHNX D-Back show. I'm going to forget some of these, Patrick. You might know them better than I do. Every week is Shark Week. Every day is Earth Day. Every month is Black History Month. So on and so forth. We'll just call it there. Jacob, let's go to the mailbag. There it is.
Is the freaking weekend?
Yeah, something like that. I know I missed a few. Derek's gonna be furious with me for sure.
Taco Tuesday?
That's fair. Every day is Taco Tuesday on the PHNX D-Back show. Let's go ahead and jump into the mailbag. Jacob, what do we have first here? This comes from Brighton Bobbitt over on X. He says, might be too early for a good answer to this, but who are some guys that have impressed you to this point in spring? Patrick, I'll give my answer, and if you want to throw anything on, you're more than welcome. I think we kind of touched on them, touched on at least a couple of names. Blaze Alexander is certainly a name that comes to mind for me. At this point, he's looked good at the plate. He's looked excellent in the field as well. The versatility, all of that, I think there's a path for him to make this team. Outside of him, I think about pitchers and the starting pitchers that we discussed earlier. I was especially intrigued with Ryan Nelson and the swing and miss that he was able to generate in his start. That was the big thing for Ryan Nelson last year, was just he would get guys to 2 strikes and he just wouldn't have the ability to put them away. We saw a more electric version of his fastball. We also saw that slider look about as good as I think we've ever seen it. So those are a couple of names that come to mind for me.
Yeah, for me it has to be Andre Chaparro. Nice one of those.
There you go.
Almost not classic, but one of those great minor league signings you love to see. And going from the Yankees and saying, you know what, I'd like to maybe have a more guaranteed opportunity to go to the postseason. So I'm going to go to the Arizona Diamondbacks. And so he had 2 hits today, including a double, RBI. Third base guy, but still at 24 years old, you go, all right, hold on, there still could be something there as well. You can't have enough of those kind of players. So far, again, it's only been a couple games, but in 4 games, 3 for 8 with the double today. Putting the ball in play, only 2 Ks so far. I like his defense. So Andre Chaparro gets a tip of the cap for me.
Yeah, a bit of a murky path probably for him to make this roster. But yeah, I mean, it came over on a minor league deal and has certainly he's a big dude, and you certainly have seen him impact the baseball a little bit early on in spring training. So that's a name to watch. Alek Thomas is maybe another name I'd throw into this conversation. He had a really nice inside out swing against a left-handed pitcher the other day, just shooting a single to the opposite field. That was good to see for him. Facing lefties is really the next step for Alek Thomas, finding a way to have some success against lefties and not pulling off so much to the first base side is a big part of that. And what we've seen so far, he seems to have made some improvements in that regard. So that's another name that I would mention. Jacob, what do we got next here? This comes from Albert. Albert says, despite evidence to the contrary for a while, I've had a bad feeling that Lawlar won't be the star everyone thinks he will be. Can you help assuage these feelings? Yeah, it's a good question. I think, anytime you're putting the word star on a player who hasn't really played in the majors at all, those are high expectations. And I'm not sure that it's fair to expect Jordan Lawlar to be a star at this point. Or at any point. Like I think just in general, like you have to see it before you really, at least I have to see it before I really start to believe that any player is going to be a star in this league. I mean, how many times do we see guys come up with all sorts of hype, and then you see it in the majors and they're a fourth outfielder, or they're not really what you expected them to be. That happens in this sport a lot. I think on the positive side with Jordan Lawlar, he does some things well that I think you feel confident are going to translate. First of all, he's a good defensive shortstop. He took a really big step forward in that regard in 2023. And if you're a good defensive shortstop in AAA, you're probably going to be a good defensive shortstop in the majors. And he looked pretty good there toward the end of last year as well. And then offensively, I think there's no questions about his bat speed. There's a lot of power in there for him to tap into. I know his contact rates were maybe a little bit lower than you'd like to see in the minors last year. So yeah, there's still questions about the hit tool. There's still questions about, is it 10 homer power? Is it 30 homer power? That kind of a thing. But he also runs the bases really well. Like he might be a 70 runner who could give you 30 or 40 stolen bases. So I think the floor for Jordan Lawlar is relatively high, just given the defense, given the fact that he plays a premium position and is a great base runner. And, I think the offense is going to translate enough for him to be a solid major league player. But yeah, in terms of him being a star, I don't know if I would come out and say yes, you should be confident Jordan Lawlar will be a star. Not because I don't think he has a good chance to be, but I just don't really want to put those kind of expectations on anyone.
I think it's easy to say, oh, this guy's going to be a star when they are immediately a star, when they immediately don't give you any doubt. They don't put any of that in your head. And obviously for Lawlar last year, you only got to see him in a very small sample size of 34 plate appearances and, didn't do too much. But dude was just finishing up his age 20 season. I think, if you go back and look at his age 19 season in 2022, and, he finishes the year in AA, but at each level that he moves up, you go, oh, the numbers take a little bit of a hit. But he was 19 years old. And then last year, when he finishes up before making his debut with Reno, he's almost a full 7 years younger than the average player in the Pacific Coast League. So you're right. He hasn't been like a slam dunk, no doubter, his entire development. But, when you're drafted at 18 years old out of high school, in only 2021, you're going to need a little bit of time. So, this not that I want to compare Jordan Lawlar with an all-time great, but if you're just looking at what he did in the majors and you're saying, oh, he didn't impress me, and so I just am not totally convinced he's going to be a superstar. It doesn't mean he won't be a superstar, right? Sure. In 2011, in 40 games, a certain someone batted .220 with a 672 OPS, which was only an 89 OPS plus, and ended up being probably the greatest player of his generation in Mike Trout. So Mike Trout came up and just barely kept that rookie eligibility, went out, won the Rookie of the Year, almost won MVP of the MVP award in 2012. And again, his first, glimpse at the show, his first opportunity, just looked okay. And so Lawlar just looks okay so far, but that by no means should totally allow you to project that he's not going to be a superstar. He might not, but nothing about what he was able to do in 2023 should really definitively allow you to believe, nope, there's definitely no way now.
That's a great point. I mean, I think even looking at prospect lists and whatnot, people aren't really losing stock in Jordan Lawlar, selling their stock in Jordan Lawlar just because of 34 bad plate appearances toward the end of the 2023 season. That's just, if you're a prospect evaluator and you react that quickly to things, you're probably not a very good prospect evaluator. And yeah, not everyone is Corbin Carroll, as Brandon said in the chat. not everyone's going to come up and, have a pretty epic like game tying double or whatever it was. And, in their major league debut, it takes time for a lot of guys, even including a lot of star level players in this league, as you talked about. So, I wouldn't, again, I'm not going to promise that Jordan Lawlar is a star. I'm not going to, necessarily expect that, but I still think he has a bright future ahead. Jacob, what do we have next? This is from Adam Thomas. He says, any reason to worry about Yu-Min Lin after today, or was this outing likely just an anomaly? We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would ever use the word worry after one Cactus League outing with really anyone, much less a guy who's 20 years old and, just reached AA last year. The fact that he's here in the first place and in big league camp, I think, is a testament to how quickly he's progressed and, the progress that he's made and a lot of really, really good things that he's been able to do up to this point. So, yeah, worry isn't a word that I would use. Maybe you should tap the brakes a little bit. If you were watching our live BP video the other day where he's striking out, several Diamondbacks hitters, if you saw that and you're like, yeah, Yu-Min Lin is, the number 3 starter of the second half of 2024 or whatever, like, yeah, you should probably tone that down a little bit. I don't think those are fair expectations to have for him. But yeah, I'm never, Patrick, really going to read too much into one spring training outing.
No, you just, it was served a slice of humble pie. That's it. Maybe he was, on a high horse after striking out all those guys on the backfields during live BP, and this humbled him a little bit. Okay. I still have a ways to go, and he'll figure those things out. Yeah, not too concerned about today.
Our last mailbag question is probably the most important one. This comes from Hanley. What is the best sauce for chicken wings? Ranch or blue cheese, I think, are the options he's proposing there. Patrick, I'm not a huge chicken wings guy. I got to be honest here. I guess I would maybe go.
That's surprising to me.
Is it?
Is it the mess?
It is the mess.
Yeah, I'm a little bit like, would you eat okay, so
it is
like openly on the show, are you a boneless wings guy then?
No, because I know that boneless wings are like if you want to be just absolutely like hated or just like morally destroyed by the people that you're hanging out with, you get boneless chicken wings. Like, I think this is kind of a well-established thing at this point. Patrick, I don't know if you're with me on this.
I don't do wings too often. I mean, yeah, boneless wings are obviously a lot less messy, but give me the bone in. I'm going bone in on my wings, and I'm going blue cheese. I like a good blue cheese, whether it's on my wings or on a burger. A burger with blue cheese and bacon. Not to get off topic there, but no, blue cheese is definitely the right answer when you're getting some wangs.
There you go. I think blue cheese is kind of disgusting. I have to believe I'm not the only person.
Yeah, I mean, it is. But I'm a blue cheese person, but I can see where you're coming from. Like, I know that there are people out there that are very much anti-blue cheese people because it is a very polarizing thing to have basically just moldy aged cheese.
Yeah, and you pitching it that way isn't exactly helping its case, Jacob. So well done. You really nailed that.
It's a little liquid. It's a little solid, right? It's lumpy. But it's very. What's your take on cottage cheese, Jesse?
Also not a fan. Yeah, any of those like kind of obscure, weird, like liquidy cheeses, I'm probably out.
But teriyaki on the wings for sure.
Sure.
Big teriyaki guy.
Yeah, that's fair. I do, to be clear, I do really I think bone-in wings are good. And yes, bone-in are definitely better than boneless, but the mess does get me. I just for some reason, any food that's really messy. It's the same with ribs. I think ribs taste amazing, but the mess that's required to consume them, just not really worth the trade-off for me. So I don't know. Am I weird, Patrick? I guess the answer is yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I knew that long before this mailbag. No, not at all. Yet certain things are messy like that, but once in a while, you just got to splurge and go, yeah, I'm gonna have barbecue sauce, possibly in my eyebrows. But you know what? These are good. This is a good place for ribs. I'm gonna go there, and I don't really care if I get any on the brim of my cap. I'm getting these ribs.
Yeah, I don't want any condiments in my eyebrows. That's where I draw the line. But where I don't draw the line, in fact, I've been making some serious contributions in this arena recently, is with our friends over at the BetMGM Sportsbook, because the other day in this office, Patrick, we were out of producers and we needed someone who was not schooled in the production realm to heroically step up and produce our bets show with one Damon Farrell. And you know who was in the office that day at 9 o'clock? It just so happened to be me. And so I produced our bets show the other day. Were Damon's bets actually good? Did they actually work out well for those who took his advice? That I cannot speak to. I was mentally so focused on trying to not like utterly wreck his show from a production standpoint. But Damon does a pretty good job, especially when he's listening to my advice. And of course, you can do all of this over at the BetMGM Sportsbook app. Sign up for BetMGM, use bonus code PHNX, place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through the BetMGM Sportsbook mobile application for at least $5. You will receive $150 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Check out the show notes for full details. And now listen to Damon talk about the disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms. This promotional offer is not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico. There you go. Nice work, Patrick. Way to come through. Cog says, late mailbag question. Jesse, have you been to Texas Roadhouse? Apparently that's
no free ads, Cogs.
That's right. No free ads. But the answer is no. So I'll just throw that out there. But somewhere I have been is Four Peaks, because I do know a thing or two about our friends over at Four Peaks and how incredible their chicken tenders are. That was a perfect
transition, Jesse.
That was smooth.
Every once in a while, I don't make a complete fool of myself. But yes, be sure to follow them on social. You can keep up with everything happening over with our friends at Four Peaks, at Four Peaks Brew and at Four Peaks Pub. Get all the latest on Arizona's premier craft brewery. I believe our Coyotes crew was out there yesterday as part of their whole event that they were doing. A whole bunch of people doing a watch party over at Four Peaks. It's a great place to watch some sports, grab some food, get a drink, all that good stuff. Visit fourpeaks.com/locator to find all your favorite beers and events. Check out, once again, at Four Peaks Brew or at Four Peaks Pub to keep up with the latest at Arizona's hometown brewery. Must be 21 or older to drink Four Peaks, and please enjoy responsibly. Well, to wrap things up today, Patrick, we have some actual free agency news with
Nick Ahmed signs with the San Francisco Giants.
Nick Ahmed did, in fact.
That's what we're going to be talking about, right?
I don't think Nick Ahmed is a Scott Boras client. Is he? Am I missing something there?
No, he's not. But
that would surprise me.
I mean, unless we save this for tomorrow, I do want to talk about Nick Ahmed for like 2 minutes. Do you
sure.
want to do that?
Yeah, go for it. Have at it.
All right, so he signs this minor league deal with the San Francisco Giants. He's had exactly 10 years with the Diamondbacks, right? And only the Diamondbacks, right?
Yeah. Yep.
He's the only one. Like, there's no one else, I think, that's even remotely close. My quick little research turned up 2 guys with 4 years, and they haven't played with anybody else. And again, if you have a 4-year career, you're not exactly Mr. Diamondback, right? David Peralta probably should have been that guy. Right, he had 9 years before that trade in 2022 to Tampa. He's kind of ruined his legacy a little bit after all that business with the Dodgers. But right now, at this moment, the guy who is spent after Nick Ahmed, and if he shows up with the Giants, he's out. He's out. He's no longer Mr. Diamondback. Mr. Diamondback right now, Jesse, entire career with the Diamondbacks for the longest time, 4 years, Yasmani Tomas.
Oh, gosh.
I could not find anyone with 5 or more seasons just with the Diamondbacks.
You just made everyone in the chat so unnecessarily angry, Patrick. I don't know why you did this to yourself.
Corbin's got the deal. I think when it's all said and done with, he'll be that guy. Pavin Smith also, this is year number 4 for him. So, I mean, you could go that route as well. But yeah, it's going to be Corbin Carroll when it's all said and done. But If Nick Ahmed does not actually play a game with the Giants, then he can still kind of hold that moniker.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he's able to crack that roster. I figured that some team was going to give Nick Ahmed a shot, even though his arm is not what it used to be. Defensively, still really good. And last year was a weird year for him where the splits were highly reversed. He really didn't hit lefties at all, hence why the Diamondbacks ultimately made that move. He actually hit righties pretty well, but that's not really something he'd done well historically. They weren't really going to continue to give him those opportunities. So, yeah, hopefully for Nick Ahmed, he was, certainly a joy to cover on a daily basis. Really, really nice guy. Hopefully that works out for him. But yeah, someone who is not going to be named Mr. Diamondback anytime soon is Cody Bellinger, who signed with the Chicago Cubs on a deal that I found pretty surprising. 3 years, $80 million is the guarantee. There's opt-outs after 2024 and 2025. He's making $30 million this year, $30 million next year, and then $20 million is the salary for 2026 if he actually makes it there. Patrick, initial thoughts on what was, at least for me, a significantly lower guarantee than I expected?
Yeah, the overall guarantee is really what it's about, because as far as the AAV goes, you go, oh yeah, that was probably what he was looking to get in general, but looking to get, probably like 8 to 10 years, which you have to think was what part of some of those conversations were like between Scott Boras and the teams he was negotiating with. I did write about this for Just Baseball, like looking at the history of Scott Boras when he holds his clients out to February and March, excluding 2022, because so much of that off season was, segmented by the lockout. So there were a ton of guys who ended up signing after the lockout. So I don't really consider that to be like, hey, I held my guys out from signing with someone. It just didn't have the opportunity to do it in December and January and February. So that being what it was, for the most part, whenever Boras ends up holding out for maybe waiting for a team to have an injury or something like that, more times than not, his player gets significantly less than what was projected for him. The only time that it really ever paid out and he had to do some finagling was with Eric Hosmer. That was really the only time that he ended up getting the overall, money that he was looking to get. It ended up being more years, so the annual salary, wasn't quite as much. But all that matters is what's the overall dollars that's going to be guaranteed. The Padres are still paying Eric Hosmer's contract since that deal. So it doesn't look well for Snell and Montgomery and even JD Martinez. Maybe JD Martinez a little bit better since it's going to be a short-term deal. Matt Chapman as well. But yeah, Bellinger getting those opt-outs is probably the best you could hope for, where, you have a little bit of longevity where if 2024 doesn't work out well or he's hurt, okay, it allows him to come back for another $30 million. And then he's still, such a young guy to begin with that, if he doesn't opt out until 2025, that's going to be okay. And maybe that even ends up becoming the plan, because the free agent class this time next season, or this time next year, the 2024-25 offseason is pretty loaded. So I don't honestly know if that bodes better for, there to be more, top-notch free agents, or if you want to hold them out in 2025, Bellinger may becomes the top of the class at that point. So all in all, Boras did not get the money he was hoping to get. I think if you're Bellinger, you're probably a little frustrated because now you can't really take it as easy as you would have liked. You're not as relaxed where you have that kind of contract that takes you to the end of your career. You still got to really work towards it.
Yeah.
But I think if you're the other three guys, you'd say, yeah, get me a Bellinger deal at this point, because I just want at least a decent amount of guaranteed money that I was supposed to get, and a team, because the longer you wait, I think, each day it's probably another $1 million off of what they can expect to get going forward.
I mean, what a fascinating player Cody Bellinger is, right? Like, you think about how good Cody Bellinger can be at his best. I mean, you look at his numbers from 2019 when he was the MVP. He slugged .629. He had an OPS of 1035. He hit 47 homers and stole 15 bases and was a good defender. Like, he can be that guy, or he can be, 2021, 2022 Cody Bellinger, who's like not really even an everyday caliber player. Or he can be 2023 Cody Bellinger, which I feel like the entire baseball world just didn't really have a good sense of who that guy was. All of a sudden, Cody Bellinger went from being, the guy who sells out for power and swings at everything and strikes out a lot, but hits a whole lot of home runs, to being a guy who shortens up with 2 strikes and, almost had like slap hitter tendencies at times. And of course, he still managed to hit 26 home runs along the way. But you look at the underlying numbers, and they were not favorable for Cody Bellinger. If you look at his Baseball Savant page, it is not very red. There's actually quite a bit of blue, with some of the expected stats and some of the underlying stuff. So I think he's just he's a fascinating player. I could see a scenario where he wins the MVP in 2024, and maybe that's a stretch, but I mean, he did it before. And I could also see a scenario where, he takes a big step back, and maybe the Cubs a year from now are like, oh shoot, we actually have to pay this guy, $30 million for 2025 and then $20 million for the year after that if things don't get better. So yeah, just a really, interesting situation. I didn't expect him to get some of the lofty numbers that people were throwing out at the beginning of the offseason. I think MLB Trade Rumors had like 12 years and $264 million. That always seemed a little ludicrous to me for someone who had the questions that Bellinger does. But I still it kind of feels like Scott Boras took an L here. Is sort of, that's sort of like my initial assessment seeing the numbers.
I think so. Yeah, I think he just overplayed his hand. And all 4 of the guys that are still out there, they're not really marquee names. That's the other piece. Is I think Bellinger is to a degree, but again, it's been several years since that MVP season, so he's not the superstar. Like, if you're a baseball fan, you know that Cody Bellinger is a superstar, but if you're just a sports fan, I don't know that you're putting Cody Bellinger in that echelon, right? Same thing for Blake Snell too. In fact, I'm not even terribly convinced that Blake Snell is as fantastic as some of the statistics would show, because he just doesn't go very long in a game. He's 3 times through the lineup, 2 times really. So I think they're just not those marquee names to get the long-term deals. I almost think that like Boras is maybe just holding out JD Martinez just to get a spot for Matt Chapman. There could be a team out there. Look at someone like the Giants. Like, they probably really like to have JD Martinez, but Boras is like, no, I've got to move Matt Chapman first, because I know someone's gonna take JD Martinez off my hands. But once he's gone, that could be the last major opportunity I have to move Chapman. So the Giants are saying, hey, how much is that Martinez in the window? And he's like, not really for sale right now. Can I discuss with you the Matt Chapman model over here?
Sure.
And I don't know that the Giants are buying, especially now that, of course, they've acquired Nick Ahmed. And I should make a note, when I was talking about Mr. Diamondback and players with a certain amount of years, I was just talking about position players. Of course, Brandon Webb in many ways is Mr. Diamondback. But even again, that was 7 years?
Yeah, it was a pretty short
Corbin
career.
Carroll. You just want him to be that guy.
There you go. I think for the Cubs, just kind of taking a look at where they're at in the National League, I think Baseball Prospectus has them at 82 projected wins now following this move. So they're still kind of right in the middle. Like, I don't really think Cody Bellinger coming back puts the Cubs in the thick of the their favorites to win the Central or anything like that at this point. I kind of feel like the Cubs had no choice but to make this move. Losing Cody Bellinger for, after what he gave them last year would have been a really big loss for them. I don't really think they did anything else this offseason that would have replaced that production. I like Shota Imanaga for them, but he's kind of just replacing Marcus Stroman. Hector Neris is a good piece for the bullpen. I like that. But yeah, this Cubs offseason on the whole, it still kind of feels like they're running it back in some ways. It's just, instead of Stroman, it's Imanaga. They've got an extra bullpen piece. I still think the Cubs probably would need to do more in order to really cement their status as yes, this team is probably going to the playoffs in the National League.
Yeah, in the NL Central too, it's not terribly strong.
Right.
It's also not terribly weak, right? I think we've been talking over the past week with some of the CHGO Cubs guys, and just like if you look at the worst team, someone like the Pirates, you go, they got enough of those veteran pieces, and those young guys are bound to step up, as some of them have been over the last couple years, where, the separation between first place and fifth place in the NL Central, might be the fewest that it's been in any division, really, other than those years in which the AL East, just everybody's really good in it. So the Cubs have a decent amount of depth, too. That's another piece. I think that's a benefit to them. The Cardinals bullpen, I think, is really suspect in general. The Brewers, despite the loss of Craig Counsell, who is arguably, even with Cody Bellinger coming back, he was on the roster last year, so he's not a new face, a new name. Whereas Craig Counsell, he was probably the biggest addition in the offseason, right? But you'd almost expect the Brewers, a team that isn't just coached up, but they have players that are developed up by the front office and their analytics department from years of David Stearns doing that thing. You could still say, what, if the Brewers ended up winning the Central too, maybe it's only 87, 88 wins, whatever. That also really wouldn't surprise you. And I know the Reds are kind of that team that everyone, really wants to think is going to take another major step going forward. But that doesn't always happen with those young teams that arrive a year early. So, this definitely helps the Cubs out, but you're right. I'm still not totally convinced that they are the class of the NL Central.
I like Michael Busch for them. I guess that's one name that I didn't mention, that trade they made with the Dodgers. Maybe he's able to contribute, but yeah, we'll see how things look. As you said, it's a pretty wide open division. If the Cubs were in the NL West, they'd be in a much more precarious position right now. In the Central, you feel like you have a shot at not only the wild card, but also the division, even if you're not expecting to win 90, 95 games or whatnot. We still have more free agents out there, Patrick, which is still just a little bit crazy at this point. Blake Snell's out there, Jordan Montgomery's out there, JD Martinez. So yeah, and Matt Chapman, as you said. So hopefully we get resolutions on those guys here in the coming days. I'm especially curious, does this make teams a little bit more likely to stick to their guns on, what their previous offer was? If they see Cody Bellinger getting 3 years and $80 million, are you like, oh, maybe we won't kick this into an extra gear? Maybe Scott Boras is actually in a tougher position than we thought, and maybe we can actually get these players for less money than we might have thought.
It's going to be interesting to see how it ends up playing out. I almost get the sense too, and you're down there obviously on the backfields with Arizona, and they seem like they've already added all their chips. But still, like, once everyone reports, it's like, this is our team. Let's go forward with it. And the front office, they're still doing work. They're still trying to figure some things out. But once you've got the players, like, it's down to the coaching staff to do things. You're not even really worrying about major trades or anything of that nature. So it's just unusual to add a player of the caliber of these guys so close to the start of opening day. The Rockies actually did that last year in March, where they added Mike Moustakas, Brad Hand, and I'm drawing a blank on who the third guy was. Jurickson Profar.
Yeah, Jurickson Profar was like super late, right?
He wasn't even ready for opening day, which I thought was kind of somewhat of a farce to basically play your first 3 games of the season, shorthanded. Like, no, we're only bringing 25. We can't send him to the minors. He's on the big league roster. But they signed those guys, because they had some injuries. And I think they were really worried about, possibly losing 100 games. So this obviously is much different, where you're talking about making a major financial investment for more than just 1 year. And you're still not guaranteed with that major roster to not only make the postseason, but as we've seen with the Dodgers in the past, you can get into the postseason, but then it's not going to guarantee you anything as far as winning a World Series. So,
right.
Boras has his work cut out for him. I think the rest of the deals that you end up seeing for these guys probably look a little bit similar to Bellinger, where he gets the average annual value, for 2 to 3 years with all those opt-outs built in, and, little column A, little column B, but it's not what he was really hoping for in the beginning. He's going to be taking an L, I think, for this in general.
Yeah. Groundhog Mama says Snell went from winning a Cy Young Award to being unemployed. Great job, Scott Boras. Yes, there's going to be a lot of Scott Boras slander, which is something we're pretty used to, because Scott Boras is Scott Boras, and he says Scott Boras things, and people don't necessarily love the things that he says, but he doesn't usually get slammed as much for getting his players less money than maybe we expected them to get. So we'll see how things turn out with those other free agents that are still out there. Patrick, I love spring training baseball. This is honestly maybe my favorite part of the baseball season. Just getting to be outside as much as we do and enjoy the lovely weather. If you all are looking to get out to a spring training game sometime soon, use our friends over at Game Time. They offer a personal experience. It is the most aesthetically pleasing ticketing app that you'll find anywhere. It is the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason as well. So snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We talked the other day about how spring training tickets are a little bit outrageous. The word has gotten out about the Cactus League and all the wonderful things happening around Arizona this time of year. But be sure to check out Game Time when you're shopping around for those tickets. I also want to tell you real quick about Phoenix Raceway, which is an extraordinary thing. I was big into NASCAR growing up. And NASCAR is returning to Phoenix Raceway from March 8th to 10th. That is certainly big news. They offer the best in-class fan experience, and it's fantastic. You've got the Estrella Mountains in the background. It's in a really beautiful part of town. So be sure to get down on this. It's a extraordinary experience that you can have over at Phoenix Raceway. Get your tickets to the Shriners Children's 500 at Phoenix Raceway. That's March 8th to 10th. Once again, promises a weekend of good vibes for the whole family. Get your reserve grandstand tickets now at phoenixraceway.com.
As a former NASCAR guy, they're letting children drive these cars now? Is that what you said? It was some kind of children's race?
Yeah, I think so. Yep. I think that's, I mean, I would have trusted like 8-year-old me. I mean, at least 8-year-old me would have trusted 8-year-old me to actually go out there and get in on the action a little bit.
You're a good driver. You're a good driver. People, look, you take some shots from time to time, but I felt very safe in the passenger seat when you're driving around in one of the several cars that you have in your fleet.
8-year-old me, Patrick, was an even better driver than current day me, believe it or not, or so 8-year-old me thought at the time. So who's to say? Well, anyway, thank you all so much for being with us here on this Monday evening edition of Mailbag Monday. We really appreciate all of you guys making the time and hopping in with us here. Be sure to follow all of us on Twitter. You can find me at Jesse N. Friedman. You can find Patrick at Patrick D. Lyons. And you can find Jacob, our producer today, at Jacob_Franklin4. That is because he is the fourth best Jacob Franklin. You can also follow our Diamondbacks beat account on Twitter. That's at PHNX_Dbacks. And of course, all roads lead to at PHNX_sports. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Patrick, I know you're covering not only the Rockies at this point, but a number of other teams as well for just baseball. Is there anything you wanna plug here real quick as we say goodbye?
Nope, not right now. Just baseball.com for all the written content over there. There was a Dodgers trade, right? Actually, they made 2 transactions. So Manny Margot, boom's going to the Minnesota Twins. They get a decent little shortstop prospect in exchange there. I don't know that it was finalized yet, but Kike Hernandez is coming back for them. And Brandon Crawford, another NL West legend, out of the division. He's going to the St. Louis Cardinals. So, I mean, so much really great baseball action. It's fun to focus on one team as you and I have done, and you're still doing with the Diamondbacks, but branching out and talking about all the teams and all the transactions like we just did with Cody Bellinger. It's baseball. It's great. Can't go wrong with it.
There you go. So yeah, be sure to check out Patrick's work on social, on justbaseball.com, all of the things. Thank you all once again for being with us here today. We really appreciate it. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's so much more fun when Corbin Carroll is Mr. Diamondback.
We all silly like the mayor.